What is happening in our industry? Almost 70% of the solid and engineered hardwood flooring sold in North America is manufactured in China. Over the last 20 years, many large manufacturers have closed factories here and relocated in China, where they can take advantage of lower labor costs, subsidies, and have no labor or environmental rules to follow. Unfortunately, the human effect of North Americans putting their own people out of work and damage to the environment don't show on large corporations' balance sheets. Our manufacturing supply chain collectively creates 47 jobs on both sides of the border. From cutting the logs, sawing the logs to lumber, milling, and finishing the flooring, 47 families are part of the process that began in 1985. China has created the retailer's dream by manufacturing poor-quality products that don't last. Because of the poor quality, retail stores make more sales, creating larger profits. Refrigerators are a good example of this. China manufactures 75% of the world's refrigerators. When they were made here, they would last 20 to 30 years, and now, made in China, they last 4 to 6 years. This is great for the large retailer, but bad for the consumer, and especially bad for the dump sites. Hardwood flooring is no different. Would I be correct in saying the environment is of the utmost importance to all North Americans? Our leaders and politicians say we want to leave behind a better world for our children and their children. Leaving the environment in the hands of large corporations, politicians, and communist China is not in the best interests of the environment. China is the largest polluter in the world, accounting for 30% of the world's greenhouse gases. This figure does not include pollution created by shipping materials all around the world, which would be significant. Although they say they have developed strict environmental policies, the NASA Environment Map shows otherwise. Air pollution in China causes 1.6 million premature deaths annually, or 4,000 deaths per day. China uses more coal than the rest of the world combined. To make matters worse, most of the coal is unwashed or dirty coal, significantly increasing sulfur and carbon emissions. As the rest of the world is shutting down coal plants in 2017, China is building 74 new ones and expanding 46 existing ones. The Paris Climate Change Agreement, signed in 2015, gives China developing country status. Being a developing country allows the biggest polluter in the world a free pass to continue polluting until 2030. How could 195 countries who formed the Paris Climate Agreement be that naive and not see they were handing the keys of the prison over to the prisoners? China is considered a developing country because its per capita income is still a fraction of that of an advanced country. The country's prospering, but the money stays at the top and doesn't get to the working people. This distorts the figures and allows China to remain a developing country. I don't understand how China, who manufactures more vehicles than North America and Japan combined, can be considered a developing country. Unfortunately, to keep the price low, none of the vehicles are equipped with pollution control that would pass EPA standards. Most of these vehicles are made for domestic use, but many are sold to other developing countries with no pollution control standards. It's obvious China does not care about the environment, and the Paris Climate Change Agreement is doomed to fail. In 2010, the Green Climate Fund was set up, and it is hoped to produce $100 billion plus annually by the year 2020. This fund is paid for by developed countries to assist developing countries in adaptation and mitigation practices to counter climate change. Letting the so-called undeveloped countries pollute and then have the developed countries pay for the cleanup doesn't make sense. Looking at the 10-year plan for building coal plants around the world, it is very unlikely the goals of the Paris Climate Accord will be reached. With a population of 1.3 billion, vehicles in China have gone from 60 million in 2007 to more than 300 million in 2017. Poor road design and so many vehicles cause congestion and increase emissions. Most vehicles are not equipped with emission controls, and diesel-powered engines pollute 20 times more than gas ones. Poor quality fuel and no emission controls is a bad combination. Breathing the air in China is equivalent to smoking 2 packs of cigarettes per day. Over the last 20 years, China has emerged as the world's manufacturing capital, which has created the need for massive container ships for shipping product. 90% of all items consumed in North America arrive to us in a container. 15 of the largest container ships create more pollution than all the cars in the world, 780 million, running at the same time. Not to mention there are 6,000 more container ships, none of which are small, plus another 85,000 ocean-going cargo vessels roaming the seas. The United States and Canada have made attempts to regulate emissions in international waters but have not been successful, as it is too hard to monitor and enforce. Most shipping companies register their vessels in countries that have no regulations to avoid extra costs and monitoring. These vessels are fueled with bunker fuel, which is the cheapest, lowest grade of liquid fuel. This thick black sludge contains 2,000 times as much sulfur as the normal diesel we use in our vehicles. 85% of the shipping pollution is in the Northern Hemisphere. Ship pollution has a huge effect on the health of communities in coastal and inland regions around the world, yet pollution from ships remains the least regulated of our global transportation system. It's great our governments are forcing car companies to produce more efficient, greener vehicles, but the elephant in the room is the ocean-going vessels. Airborne particulates of soot and sulfuric acid less than 2.5 micrometers in diameter from coal-fired electrical plants, factories, ships, and vehicles are very hazardous as it easily penetrates the lungs and enters the bloodstream, causing cancer, severe respiratory and cardiovascular issues. Chinese factories and coal-fired plants produce 25.5 million tons annually of sulfur dioxide, the chemical that causes acid rain. The acid rain damages the crops, and much of it goes abroad to neighboring countries. This particulate can hang in the air for as long as 10 days and travel 20 to 30 miles inland, so in busy shipping ports there is no escaping this air. We've only talked about emissions from the ships and nothing about the sewage and garbage being thrown into the oceans. Accidents at sea are very common, especially as traffic is increasing. The noise pollution caused by these ships interferes with communication and movement patterns of marine life. Each year, many whales are hit by container ships. China plays a big role in the global illegal logging business valued at between $52 billion to $152 billion. Illegally, logs account for 10 to 30% of the total global wood industry. The crime principally occurs in Southeast Asia, Central Africa, and South America, where an estimated 50 to 90% of the timber in these regions is being illegally acquired. China is the primary destination for the majority of this illegally sourced timber. The timber is not harvested in a sustainable way, causing long-term damage to the environment. Most of this material is manufactured into products and re-exported. In the end, honest people get penalized because they can't compete with illegally harvested timber purchased at a fraction of the market price. Thanks to improved environmental practices and technological advancements made in North America over the past decade, greenhouse gas emissions have decreased. Unfortunately, China's greenhouse gases have increased significantly more, offsetting any progress we've made. The real cost of Made in China is devastating to our manufacturing, but the largest impact is on the environment. Although the wages in China are cheap, most industries are subsidized by the government. Recently, the International Trade Commission ruled the Chinese hardwood plywood was subsidized, ranging from 23% to 194%. The Chinese had taken 50% of the U.S. market and would have killed it had they not been able to prove the subsidies. Once they have full control of the market, they can raise the prices, and over the long term, they are the winners. When you choose a Gaylord floor, everything is done within a 300-mile radius, creating the smallest carbon footprint possible. Our flooring is made with the cleanest energy in the world. Choosing Gaylord, you get the highest quality flooring while supporting jobs in both the United States and Canada. We would like our flooring to be your first choice, but if not, please make sure your choice is North American made. It doesn't make sense to purchase poor quality flooring from illegally harvested logs from the largest polluter in the world shipped on a huge polluting container ship. What do we want to leave for our children? You can't go wrong doing things right.
Many North American manufacturers like us don't promote themselves as being green because that's just the way they do business, and that's the right thing to do. Unfortunately, being green has become nothing more than a marketing tool. The companies who promote themselves most as being green and sustainable are usually the opposite. A company manufacturing flooring in China is not trying to reduce their carbon footprint. They are trying to increase profits. Much of a product's environmental impact comes from shipping, so shipping North American lumber to China to be made in flooring is not sustainable manufacturing.
All of our lumber sourcing and manufacturing is done within a 300-mile radius, giving us the smallest possible carbon footprint. We will never have our flooring made in China. The environment and the relationships I've built over 40 years in the lumber business mean far more to me than making money in the short term. I want to leave a better world for my granddaughters, and I want her to be proud of me. Give me 5, Ophelia. Give me 5. Yay!
Good, Mom.